How are you guys doing?
Good.
Have you had a lot of tests yet?
Not yet. Friday.
Kind of, some, okay. Well, my name is T.I.G.E.R.S. I'm the coordinator for Student Accessibility Services over in the Kelly Center.
And I'm Sarah Brungart. I'm a mental health counselor at the Kelly Center. And I just wanted to point out the brochure that I gave to everyone. How many of you guys know about the Kelly Center? Okay, about half. How many of you guys are freshmen? Okay, so just kind of reviewing it, these are the different services that the Kelly Center offers. And so the first one would be personal counseling, which is my piece. We have males and females, counselors, different ages. All of that is confidential if you're 18 or older. Academic success would be Maggie Denning, the one that checked you in. She helps with anything from time management, study skills, test taking, test anxiety, time management.
I don't know where to go to ask a question, come see me.
Yeah.
I don't always know either, but I just start dialing. We find the right answer.
And she's also in charge of the peer tutoring that they have over at the Kelly Center. And so all of those services are free to students, so please take advantage of those. Drug and alcohol wellness, we also have counseling for substance abuse. That's also the place you'll have to go if you get in trouble for alcohol or drugs. Do you want to say your piece?
Sure, so I work with students with disabilities, so a student who maybe received accommodations in high school, maybe got some extra time on their exams, have some mobility issues. So those are the types of things that I help with. So if you ever have any questions about that, feel free to contact us and I can help you understand if maybe you might qualify for some accommodations, if you might not. So I could talk about that for a long time, but that's not why we're here. So.
And then the very last thing, testing services. If you need to take an exam to get into the nursing program or to get into graduate school, you can take that down at the Kelly Center. There's up to 3,000 different tests that they do in the testing center. So that's also down at the Kelly Center. And at the end, if you guys are interested, we have a lot of resources up here at the table, different things from time management to academic calendars. There's also one of these, which will tell the rest of the T.I.G.E.R.S series events for this semester. And so we'll have 4 more, okay?
So today, obviously, we're going to talk about some different tips for test taking. So we'll talk about different skills and techniques that you can use when you're preparing for your exams, like learning how to organize yourself when you're studying and how to be efficient with your time, controlling your test anxiety, things of that nature. So so when you guys think of a test, like what comes to mind? Like it's just a scary test of seeing what you can do? Is that kind of just something that's really terrifying? And so I hope it's not, but when you think about a test at the college level, the purpose of that is to measure the knowledge that you have gained in like a specific area. So I think sometimes it's easy to get overwhelmed when you think about going in for a test, but just kind of bringing that back down to the basics and saying, okay, well, this is at the core what we're doing. So just knowing that if you're putting your work in and you're studying and you're attending class, that's putting you in a really good position to be successful on your exams.
And I would just add, there are some of us that are just really good test takers. And then there are some people that identify themselves as not good test takers. Don't focus on not being a good test taker, because at the college level, tests are worth a lot of points. And so working to move that mindset of I'm never going to do well at test taking to transition it to, okay, I need to figure out what works best for me. How can I pass this exam? That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Anything else? I don't really have anything to add.
Okay. Well, that's a okay. So
Keep going.
Okay, so when you are preparing for a test, it's important to obviously know your content area. So giving the topics that you expect to be tested over, focusing a lot of attention on those. So, when you're going through your book, terms that are in bold, things that are in the summary section in the back, like those are all things that you probably need to pay extra attention to, and even reading more into what those terms mean. So, that's usually a pretty good indicator that something's important in a class. So it's good to know what you expect of yourself, kind of what Sarah said. Like you want to be confident in yourself and give yourself a chance to do well on those things. Having a study plan, so practicing what the test will be like. So that's when it's good to be in class and to be willing to ask questions to know, well, what kind of test will this be? Will it be an essay? Will it be multiple choice? So the format of the test. And an example that we have here is, if it's a Spanish class and you'll be conjugating Spanish verbs for that class, make sure you practice that so that when you get into that test that you're kind of in that mindset. Anticipating test questions. So, okay, if I was making this test up after I read this chapter, what do I think would be important? Because chances are what you think is important is probably something that the instructor would think is important as well. And then, like I said before, just be open to asking the instructor, if you don't know or if you're concerned about what might be on the test, just be open with them. That's what they're there for. So then developing strategies that work best for you. So, for example, we offer tutoring in the Kelly Center. So that might be a strategy that works really well for you. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you study better in a group with friends. Maybe it's better if you go to the library by yourself and study. So sometimes it just takes some different trial and error to find out what works best for you.
In your freshman seminar courses, you'll go over learning about what type of a learner you are. And I don't know if you guys have done that section yet. Yes. I think that's really valuable information. For me, if I want something to stay in my mind, something that I can really learn to understand, I have to write it down. And so I've learned that about myself. Some people, they just need to hear it. I'm more of, needing to write it down. And so I think the best part is really learning to understand what works best for you, because we're all a little bit different. I think the majority of my bachelor's degree, I spent memorizing information. I didn't truly learn the information. I didn't start doing that until my master's degree. I haven't had very many B's in my life, but I can't say I learned a lot in my bachelor's degree because I was so focused on memorizing it, getting the test over with, and forgetting it. And so it took my master's degree to kind of understand, that's not going to work in the workplace. And so I really challenge you guys to truly engage in your schoolwork because I did not do that. I spent a lot of money and I didn't do that at the beginning. You can go on.
Okay, so as we talked about before, when you're getting ready for exams, gather that information. So what will this test be? How long will I have to do this? What exactly is the material we're covering? Is it chapters 1 through 5? Is it chapters 1 through 3? So that you're making sure that you have all the information you need to be successful on that, and then finding out how the test will be graded. If we have essay questions, will I get partial credit if I try to answer it? Just different things like that.
Can you go back real quick?
Maybe.
I think it's important for you to know all of these so that you're feeling confident, because if you don't know a lot of these, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's going to be a lot of anxiety. But if you're able to go in, okay, I know what kind of a test this is going to be. I know how much time it's going to take, what's going to be covered. A lot of times instructors will give you credit if you at least try to answer an essay question. Sometimes they don't at all. I would say go ahead, write down what you know. It can't hurt. Okay. Something I really preach for incoming freshmen is healthy self-care. At the root of that would be sleep. A lot of times we don't see sleep as a priority, but it really, really needs to be, especially this first year into college. Along with healthy self-care, eating a well-balanced meal. A lot of times we're so busy we maybe forget to eat, or we pick up something that's not healthy for us. And so I think that's part of kind of the healthy self-care that I like to emphasize. If you're somebody who uses exercise as a way to reduce stress, I really encourage you doing that the week of or before the exam if you can, if that is helpful for you. Kind of a common routine with college students would be going to Starbucks routinely, energy drinks, that kind of thing. But you're actually not going to do the best work under those conditions. And so really making sure that you're getting the sleep, you're not over caffeinated. New research shows that after 11 a.m., caffeine can actually still affect your sleep pattern. And so it has a huge impact on us. And so kind of keeping that to a minimum. I do like caffeine, but I haven't had a pop in a long time. But I do try to use it to a minimum because I know it's not really healthy for me.
Let me just bring all these up. Okay, so, we talked about physical preparation for yourself, but it's also important to emotionally and mentally get yourself ready for your exams as well. So, just being ready to your best. So you've already learned, different things you can do to put yourself in a good state for that. Staying away from stressful situations. So other people might be stressing out about the test, and that might not be a good place for you to hang out, or a good conversation to engage in, because that can build your own anxiety about that exam, and it could take you, from a place of being pretty confident to a place of self-doubt, and that's something that we sure don't want to see happening with our students. Think positive. You've put a lot of time into this. You've attended class. You've taken notes. You've gone to tutoring. So think positive and be confident in your abilities to successfully complete your tests. And then after the test, don't dwell on it. Don't berate yourself for a question you may have missed, or I can't believe I forgot that. It's okay, and you move on, and that helps you prepare for the next test. Anything to add?
On the part, focus on what you know. If you're starting an exam and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know this, try to skip around and find something because that's going to help reduce your anxiety. Even if that means, okay, I need to go to the very last page and figure out something. Okay, the day before the test. Worry it to the extreme, not for everybody. Sometimes, for some individuals, it's helpful to take a little bit of time and just worry about that, and then at the end of that time, I'm done. I'm not going to think about it anymore. It's done and over with. I've prepared for how much I can. Discuss concerns with friends or family. I kind of go both ways with this. Partly, I think, be a little selfish in terms of, okay, so if boyfriend or girlfriend wants to have this discussion, that's not going to be one that's healthy, or if it's going to be emotional or whatever, maybe, I need to take the time just to be done with that, and I'll focus on that after the test. So I kind of see it as that. If you're somebody who needs to get some things off your chest, maybe it's helpful to kind of open up to people before. Go to bed early, set your alarm, have a backup. It is the worst feeling ever to have your alarm not go off, or if you set it for PM instead of AM or something like that. And so just have multiple forms.
Can I say something real quick?
Absolutely.
This thing's not working. It didn't put anybody in there. It only shows one. So what I'm going to ask you to do is pass this around and put your email address on here, and then we will put it in so that you get credit for it, okay? Sorry. You did that to Patty, too.
Well, I'm glad you caught it, though.
Yeah.
I was brave and switched to the other page.
One other thing about the worrying it to the extreme, that's something that, like Sarah said, for some people, that works really well. but for some people it doesn't. So sometimes it's just knowing yourself and knowing what works for you, and sometimes that can just make anxiety build if you start focusing on it a lot. So that's when you just need to know yourself and know what works for you. Okay, so on the day of the test, we'll bring all these up first so I don't forget something. Okay, so on the day of the test, make sure you bring everything with you that you need. So if it's open book, open note, make sure you have that. You don't want to be trying to borrow it from somebody else because they're not going to want to share it. Arrive on time, or actually arrive early, because you sure don't want to be late. So when you first sit down with the test, make sure that you read the instructions thoroughly, because sometimes, when you're feeling nervous about something, you might skip over some words or not, read that it's, that there's multiple options for answers, and you might, miss out on some key terms like that. Pre-reading the exam to kind of have an idea, okay, for this area I should be pretty good. This area might be a little more difficult. This area I'm just not sure about at all. So prioritizing your time. Reading the questions carefully. A lot of times, questions can be worded in a way that can be pretty tricky. And you want to make sure that you're, really reading the question carefully. Putting your name on the test, that's always important, because you want to make sure you get credit for your grade. And, I guess, and also thinking about, if you do find yourself starting to panic during that exam, how will you handle that? I think a lot of being successful is being prepared. Obviously, you can't prepare for every possible situation, but knowing yourself and knowing, if I get a little overwhelmed with this, I might, just start to get really upset and not feel like I can do this. So thinking ahead, okay, well, what have I done in the past that's helped me kind of break out of that?
The very last thing, put your name on the test. It sounds kind of silly, but that's kind of how our mind operates sometimes. We're so focused on the goal of getting the information we know, answer these questions, that maybe we will miss little details like adding our name.
Yeah, and take your time and make sure you're answering everything correctly, and to not rushing through things.
I think for the most part, instructors are pretty upfront with the type of exam that they're going to have. If they haven't been, I think it'd be appropriate to ask if they are able to share that information. I specifically remember certain classes would be true and false, and then some of my classes would be matching. Mm-hmm. And then, very rarely I had an open book. Did you? You did?
Sometimes. And
I very rarely did.
Actually, that made me more scared, because I know, okay, they're expecting a lot of detail.
Yeah. With the open book part, you need to know the material maybe even better, because there's going to be a lot, most likely, because you have the ability to look up the answers. So you could have a lot of questions with only a short amount of time. So really know that information. Don't just depend on open book. You may be able to do that for some classes. I don't know, but I wouldn't rely on that.
Yeah. Okay, so when we're looking at multiple choice, and I know for my undergrad and even a lot of my grad classes, I had a lot of multiple choice tests. So I think they can be, that can be good. It can also, be bad, because there can be, ways that things are worded that makes it really complicated to sort through. So, make sure you're reading the question so you really know what they're asking, because sometimes that can be kind of confusing. Looking for the different clues, and then the different qualifiers. I think that's really important. That's usually a pretty key term, or something that really helps you understand, well, yeah, most of the time it's probably not going to be always, or kind of helps you get through that. Crossing out answers that are completely incorrect, and that can help you stay focused on the ones that could be correct. I'm all about making intelligent guesses. I did that a lot in my undergrad. It seemed to work okay. So, because sometimes you just don't know. You look at it and you think, I have never read that in my life. but you can look at something else and be like, but I've read that and I know that that really means this, so you can eliminate things. And trusting your gut. And that's something that I know I've learned. I know when I would pick something and then I would second guess myself and go back and erase it, sure enough, I'd get it wrong and it was what I picked the first time. So sometimes you just have to have a little faith in yourself. Oh.
I really agree with circling keywords or highlighting or whatever you're going to do. I think that's really important. Eliminating answers, that's also important. The last part, trust your gut. What I realized about myself is sometimes the first answer was not the best, because what I found was I was more anxious and panicked over some of that. And so I'd say take your time, and if you have 10 minutes but you're done, go back through your answers, because I actually found a lot of mistakes during my graduate degree because I did not pay attention to the details, and I think it was kind of the stress and anxiety that had overwhelmed me.
Okay.
Keep going.
Okay, so when you're looking at true or false questions, once again, it can be kind of like the multiple choice. You want to watch for keywords, reading the question really carefully, because the way it's worded, could lead you to believe one thing, but that one word might make a difference, and it might, completely throw off what you thought. Once again, those absolute words all never, most of the time, in my experience, that's usually if it says, all, and then that's usually not all of those things. So that's definitely something to watch out for. And remember that, well, this part of it was true, but that one's not, well, it's wrong, it's false. So don't don't let yourself get roped into the, reasoning with yourself that, well, this was partially right, because that can be really hard too.
Sometimes at the college level, what will happen is there'll be a long descriptive question that's a true or a false, and so it wants you to decide whether it's true, whether it's false. What's been helpful for me is breaking it into like different phrases, and so then I can just focus on one thing at a time, and then if one thing is false, then I know where to go from there. But kind of breaking it up, because it can be overwhelming if you just look at a paragraph of information.
Okay. How many we got?
One thing that I have found helpful is writing down things that you're afraid you're going to forget on the exam right when you receive the exam. I found this really helpful in college algebra, statistics, because I'm not really a math person. And so the minute I got my exam, I would write down my formulas. So then I would have that on my front page. A lot of times students will spend all the time beating themselves up over one question that they just can't figure out. I imagine you're maybe not going to figure out the question in the last 5 minutes if you've been looking at it for 25. Just give yourself a break and turn it in. Sometimes I think we get so worked up about needing to get everything right where we just need to turn it in.
And sometimes if you've been struggling with one problem for a long time and you have a lot left to do, it may be better to just cut your losses and move on. Come back to it if you have time. Come back and guess. It's better than leaving it blank. Okay. So, who likes essays? Everybody likes writing essays, right?
I love essays.
I don't see any hands up. I can't believe it. So. So when you get an essay test, actually it's something that, it can actually make things a little easier, because, if you might not know exactly what an answer is, but a lot of times if you can get, the general idea down, they're going to see that, okay, well, you have a general grasp on this subject, so, that might help you get partial credit where, with a multiple choice question, if you had no idea, that you would have got no points. So sometimes it's all about how you perceive things and reframing your thoughts to think essay tests maybe are not that bad. So making sure that you're answering the question that is being asked. Making an outline to keep yourself on task with that, making sure that you're covering all the topics you need to. making sure that you're not just filling your essay with extra words that aren't necessary, getting to the point. I think instructors really appreciate that. Including facts, that really helps prove your knowledge or to show that you really are knowledgeable in an area and you're not just making things up. And then being neat, because nobody wants to read somebody's handwriting that's this big and is really sloppy. So, and honestly, that could result in some point deductions if they don't know what you're saying. So
yeah, they may say, I can't read it, so I didn't grade your paper.
Yeah. So and if you get a question and it's something that you don't know, it can be like a first reaction to really panic about that. Oh my gosh, we didn't even read about this. I have no idea. But a lot of times if you get yourself to calm down a little bit and you think about, okay, well, in this course we did cover this and it might relate to that. So it might help you get a starting point.
Yeah, and I think looking, say you're struggling on an essay question, looking back through the rest of the exams, if it's one with true and false and multiple choice, you can maybe, okay, that concept does relate to this, and maybe it'll jog your memory on something. But looking back through the test can be helpful too, because it is a horrible feeling getting an essay question and not knowing where to start.
Yeah. So a lot of times when you get an essay question, it'll be worded with a lot of these types of terms. So they want you to discuss or illustrate, define. So really looking at that and knowing that, okay, well, when they say that, I need to make sure that I'm going into detail or I'm keeping it brief, just kind of depending on what the word is.
Yeah, and I would really really be careful with those and identify those words. What is the instructor specifically asking? Because I don't know about your high school, but I didn't have to try very hard for an essay question. I could just write down a few things and it was pretty good to go. And here, okay, so if they're wanting you to illustrate this or to describe, analyze, interpret, this is all about problem solving and really thinking through it. And so, I remember my freshman year turning in exams thinking, man, I did really good on those essays. And when I got them back, that was just not the case. So really see what information they're wanting and really elaborate and analyze, because that's the level that you're at in college. Kind of talked about these already. I think you can go on and cover all those.
I think it's important, I just want to say this, that sometimes when you do matching, you one word for one question. Sometimes it's not, so it's important to pay attention to because you don't want to start crossing things off and then realize, well, maybe I needed to use that word in more than one place, or you accidentally using one word twice when you had one left. So that can help you stay organized with that. I just remember that was a problem for me sometimes, so that helped me to stay organized with that.
And it may sound silly, but don't write with a pen, because you're going to get, all screwed up. I've been there. Use a pencil so that you're able to stay organized.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks.
Okay, have you guys all looked at the syllabuses that you have for each course? Okay, those are going to be your roadmap for every single course. In high school, I never looked at my syllabuses. They were in my locker until I cleaned it out at the end of the year. It's way different in college. You really need to understand everything that's coming up, because it can help reduce anxiety in the long run if you already have all of these things planned up. I'd encourage you to write key dates down in your planner, stay organized with that. A lot of students come to me, at the end of the semester, they're afraid they're not going to pass an exam or pass a class. And so they have one exam left, and I say, okay, how many points is the exam? What are we working with? And they have no idea. Typically, that information is on the syllabus. If not, ask your instructors. It's really something to help guide you. So constantly look at that syllabus and cross things off. Know the layout of the textbook. Are any of you guys transfer students from a community college or anything? No? Well, I learned after leaving a community college that I really did need to read my textbook. in that instructors were going to pull a lot of the questions from the textbook, not stuff that they cover in class. They really want you to apply yourself and learn the information. Because I remember thinking I was so prepared for tests. Okay, I studied all the lecture notes, I did all this, but I didn't read as much as I should. It says they use TOC for big picture, the theory of constraints. All parts are connected. Solutions can be found through other areas. We kind of talked about that as well. Anything else on that one?
And just remember, you know, your syllabi for all your courses has also your instructor's contact information, office hours, what your textbook is. So a lot of times if you have a question about the class, if you really look at the syllabus for that class, the answer is there. So, and I would encourage you to really look at that before you go ask the instructor, and that will, you know, really, I think that would really impress an instructor if you went in and said, hey, I reviewed the syllabus for this course and I did not see this in here and I have this question. Like, they're going to be impressed that you looked at your syllabus.
Yeah.
That you printed it out even.
And
so
sometimes instructors just, I mean, they're done answering the same question over and over, and so they'll say, refer to the syllabus, and I don't blame them. I mean, people are constantly asking questions that's already been given to them.
Yeah. So this is something that Sarah touched on earlier, and, you know, working with the students that I work with, this is something that we talk about a lot. So when you get your test, and if you're worried that you're not going to remember things, before you even flip the test over, on the back of it, write down everything you can think of about that subject. You know, the dates, people's names, different concepts, formulas, like what Sarah did in her math classes. And that way you're not, you know, tainting yourself with reading questions and getting yourself confused and second guessing yourself. So a lot of students have found that can be really helpful. And to be honest, I used that too, and I didn't even know what it was called when I was a student. And I thought it was helpful too. Need to add to that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay, all of you guys, I think, received a test anxiety brochure, right? Do you kind of want to take a look? Grab one. Can any of you guys relate to experiencing test anxiety at some point? Okay, it sounds silly, but the number one thing that you can do in that moment if you're experiencing anxiety is to work on focusing on your breathing. Because what happens is we forget to breathe when we're anxious, and our thoughts are going crazy, we're overwhelmed, we're telling ourselves we're going to do horrible on this exam, we're not going to make it in college, then I'm going to have to move back with my parents, and then all of this stuff. And so,
worst
at least
case
that's
scenario.
Yeah. And so, also at the Kelly Center, we work with students with anxiety all the time. And so, some of these tips that they have in this brochure, you know, I utilize in personal counseling all of the time. And so, reducing kind of the stress during the exam, constantly counteracting your negative thoughts with positive thoughts. I even have some students who write at the top of their paper, "You got this," or "Come on, just pull a B," or whatever. And that's kind of been helpful too. Do you guys have your cell phones with you? Yes, you can pull them out. You guys have been so respectful. I'm not used to. Does anybody have the Calm app on their phone? You do? Do you like it? Say yes. Okay.
Or say no.
It's Calm, C-A-L-M, and it's like a little, it just has a background of blue. If you want to download that on your phone, it's pretty amazing. I'll give you a few minutes to do that.
What does it do?
I'll show you. These are just different like meditation and calming exercises. So like this one, if you find this relaxing, some people use this app like to help them sleep or anything like that. Sometimes people use it before exams. They just need to relax a little bit. It has a beach. And so the Calm app is a pretty basic one. See, I know it starts out really loud. The next app that a student recently showed me, that's one of my new favorites, is called Pacifica. And this one tracks a lot more than the Calm app does. It will track your mood, your sleeping patterns, any goals that you have for yourself. Do you have it? No? Okay. Your health, and it also will do the relaxation stuff that the Calm app does. It also helps change negative thoughts to positive thoughts. There's literally thousands of apps like these, but these are just two of my favorites right now. But those are some ways to kind of reduce anxiety if it's the night before an exam or if it's right before an exam. That could be helpful. I think that's about it on that one.
Okay. So once you get through the test, yay, right? It's over with. I think it's important to kind of step back and take a look at how that went and analyzing how you feel like you did. So thinking, okay, well, this is what went well, this is what didn't go so well. So what do I need to do next time to make this better? Did I not prepare enough in these certain areas? Did I over-prepare in this? Did I just stress myself out doing this? What techniques did I use when I became anxious that worked? Mm-hmm. So those are all really important things to remember. And then, that'll help you when you are getting ready for your next test.
Yeah, and I would, like you had talked about it earlier, don't beat yourself up over the fact that maybe you did horrible on that test. Sometimes the first test is the hardest. You don't know what the instructor is going to put on there, how long it's going to be, any details like that. So not beating yourself up over that exam and trying to walk into the second exam with a positive attitude, as hard as it may be. After the test, give yourself permission to do something nice for yourself. Some of these may get expensive, like the shopping. This one, yeah.
Oh, well.
I always tell students too, you're going to have to make sacrifices in order to get where you want to be. And so staying in for a night and studying for your test the next day, you're that much closer to graduation day. By not taking advantage of that and going out with your friends, it's setting you back a little bit. I work full-time and I work on my PhD full-time, and there are times, the last thing I want to do is homework. I want to hang out with my friends, I want to hang out with my family, but I know I have to do the things I'm doing now to get where I want to go. And it's hard. If it was easy, everybody would have a college education.
Okay, so, in summary, we talked about a lot of different strategies that you can use when preparing for your exam. So everybody knows being prepared, getting there on time, pre-reading, and then, making sure that you execute that in your exam when you turn that in. So I think that's pretty much what we have. So do you guys have any questions? We were that good.
If you guys can relate to some of this anxiety stuff and want to come talk to us, please feel free to do it. I do it all day long. And before you guys leave, I just want to show you, we do have a few things. We have a time management worksheet, a to-do list worksheet. There's a calendar with all the important dates for the semester. A lot of you guys have received it, but if you haven't, it's going to be really helpful for you to have. In your freshman seminar class, have you guys tracked your time yet for your time management? Okay, and that's kind of like what this form is too. So if you have any questions, just give us a call or stop in.